Today we're going to be focusing on financial maths. And yes, it is going to be one of those questions and answer type of things, but hopefully by looking at these past exam papers and looking at past examples, we'll be able to look at little things that will give you the tips that you need in order to succeed and really do well in these exams. Let's look at question number 1. Question 1.1 is calculate the price of one 500-gram brick of margarine if a box containing 30 500-gram bricks of margarine costs 399 Rand. Now the key thing to notice is that there's lots of numbers, and these numbers are there to confuse you. So we want to find out that if 30 bricks of so let's just call them 30 bricks of marge is equal to 399 Rand. That's the information that's the most important on that page. And what are we looking for? We're looking for one brick. And how am I going to go from 30 to 1? Now, how many of you have said minus 29? No, it's a ratio. You need to divide. So always, if I want to get back to 1, I'm going to divide by 30, the number that it is. So I'm going to divide by 30. But always ratios are fair. So what I do to the one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to divide that by 32. If you need to use a calculator, we can do that. So it's 399 divided by 30 equals, that's not really a decent answer, 13.3. Now remember, when it's 13.3, it means that it's actually 13 Rand and 30 cents. So we need to remember to have 2 decimal places. So that's going to be equal to 13 Rand and 30 cents. It's also a good idea to see if that's a reasonable answer. Is 13 Rand 30 a reasonable answer for one block of margarine? It is probably a reasonable answer. If I'd got 130, I should go back and check that I'd done the right thing. Right, let's go on to question part 2. The lady intends selling oranges at her school market day, and she buys 1 dozen oranges for 9 Rand. So the key things there is that 1 dozen oranges is 9 Rand. She decides to sell the oranges in packets of 6 at 6 Rand per packet. And the first question of this is to find out the cost price of 1 orange. Now the cost price is what you bought it for, what you actually paid for that item. So I want to find out how much she paid per orange. She's got a dozen, and that's something that you should know, is equal to 12. And she bought them for 9 Rand. So basically 9 Rand for 12. So I need to split my 9 Rand into 12 parts. So I'm going to divide it by 12. And again, I can use my calculator. 9 divided by 12 is equal to 3/4. That's not really a decent answer for money. So I'm going to change it to decimals, and it's 0.75. What does that actually mean? It actually means that it's 75 cents. I could write it as 75 cents or 0.75 with an R in front, and those would be my answers. Now we're going to go on to question 1.2.2. The profit that she will make per dozen oranges sold. We know that she bought them for 75 cents each, and now we need to find out how much she sold them each. So let's see, if she sold a dozen, let's go back to our question to see what the question says. She decides to sell the oranges in packets of 6 at 6 Rand per packet. So in order for us to actually get 12, which is a dozen, she needs to have 2 packets. is equal to 12 oranges. And she sold each of those packets at 6 rand, so it's going to be 6 times 2. So she sold them for 12 rand, and better write that we sold them for that. And we bought them for 9 rand for the packet of a dozen. So if I sold them for 12 rand and I bought them for 9 rand, my profits is going to be 12 minus the 9, which gives me a profit of 3 rand per dozen. Which means that for every dozen oranges she sells, she's making 3 rand profits. Then the next question, question 1.2.3, it says, how much would it cost Naledi to buy 108 oranges? Well, we bought our oranges from, if we look back at question 1.1.1, we bought them for 75 cents each. So if I wanted to buy 108 oranges, it's obviously going to be 108 times our 75 cents. I would always write it as rands because I want my answer as rands. If I had written it as cents, then my answer would be in cents, and I would need to then convert it back to rands afterwards. And remember, if I'm converting from cents to rands, it's always divided by 100. Let's bring up our calculator and have a look at how we do the sum. So it's going to be 0.75, which is luckily still there, times by our 108. And when we push equals, it's going to give us 81. So that means that we've got 81, it's going to cost 81 rand for the 108 oranges. Let's go on to question 1.3. 1.3 says convert $1,215, remember that's the dollar sign, to rands. Use the exchange rate that $1 is 10 rand and 52 cents. Now I would always put down the exchange rate that they've given you first. So I'm going to write down $1 is equal to 10 rand 52. And I'm converting dollars to rands, so it's always a good idea then to have the dollars on the left hand side because that's what we actually want to convert. Then I want to put the other bits of information that I have been given, and that's going to be $1,215. Now in order to get from $1 to $1,215, I'm going to times that by 1,215. And what I do to the one side, I always do to the other. So it's going to be times by 1,215. Let's use our calculators to help us with that one. So it's going to be the 1,215 times by 10 rand 52. And we get an answer that needs to be changed to be 12,781 rand and 0.8, which means that's actually 80 cents. Please, please, please don't forget to have 2 decimal places with money. So let's write that down. Our answer is 12,781 and 80 cents. Is that reasonable? Yes, because for every $1 we have 10 rand. So if I had 1 to 10, if I had 1,215, if I times that by 10, it should be 12,000 and something. So that's a reasonable answer. So we know that we're on the right track. Right, let's go on to question 1.4. Andrew earns a taxable salary of 8,525 rand per month. After deductions for pension and medical aid, his tax is 28%. How much will be deposited in his bank account? Right now, what we need to realize is that he's got a salary. The deductions have been taken off already, so he's paid his pension and his medical aid. So the only thing left he has to pay is his tax. So we need to find out what the 28% of his taxable income is. So that's going to be 28% of 8,525 Rand. So let's work that out. So 28% of is usually times 8,525 Rand. The best idea is to use your calculator. So we're going to say 28, and I can just use the percent button, times 8,525 Rand, and I get 2,387 Rand. So the money that is going to be put into his bank account is actually going to be his income minus his tax, which is going to be, let's go back and check, 8,525 Rand. Take off the 2,387. Getting out our calculators again. We say 8,525 minus 2,387, and our answer is 6,138. So that will be in his bank. We're now going to look at question 2, and this focuses mainly on graphs and pie charts. So let's see what we can do. Question 2. The pie charts below show the yearly expenditure of Python Soccer Club and Mamba Soccer Club in 2010. You can see that the Python Soccer Club has got a total expenditure of 54,000, whereas Mamba has got an expenditure of 35,000. And this pie chart basically shows the breakdown of their expenses. The question is, what was the total expenditure of the Python Soccer Club for 2010? So first of all, we need to decide which of the two pie charts we're going to be looking at. We need the Pythons one, and therefore we're going to look at that. And this is a nice easy question because they've given us the answer right there. Total expenditure is 54,000. Let's go on to the next part of this question, and it's based on the same graphs, so they are there still. And we're going to look at what percentage was spent by the Mamba Club on transport. So we need to make sure again that we're looking at the correct chart. This is the Mamba Club, so we're looking at transport, and they want percentage. So we need to read carefully, and that's very easy then because it's just 45%. Nice reading off the graph. Let's go on. Again, same graphs. So let's see what they want to find out next. What percentage was spent by the Mamba Club on equipment? Oh dear, there's nothing written there. So we need to calculate it. So remember, with pie charts, we need a total of 100%. So let's write that down. And then the best idea is to actually look at what we've got, and we need to add them up. So we want to find equipment, and so it's going to be 100, take away all the other bits. So it's going to be the 14% plus the 11% plus the 45%. I'm now going to work out what all of these added up together are. And if I do that on my calculator, is going to be 14 plus 11 plus 45, which gives me a total of 70. 100 take away 70, which gives me 30%. So then I can see that my equipment is going to be 30%. That was easy, so let's go on to 2.4. Again, it's based on the same questions, same pie charts. So let's see what they want to know next. Calculate the actual amount spent by the Pythons Club on maintenance. Okay, what do they mean by the actual amount? They don't want a percentage, they need to know how much money was spent. So how are we going to work that out? First of all, we need to look and see what percentage was spent on maintenance. So that's dealing with this. Remember, we're talking about the Pythons now, and remember this is the Pythons graph. So we're looking at 33%, so maintenance is equal to 33% of what? Now you need to remember that if you're talking about expenditure, a whole pie chart, they told you what the total expenditure was. So that was the amount that they told us at the top of the page. And in this club, it's for 54,000. So you can see that over there. So it's going to be of that 54,000. The last time we worked out a percentage, we did it with the percentage button. If you're not so lucky to have a calculator that's got a percentage button, there is another way of doing it. So let's do it that way this time. So it's going to be 33, and always percentages are out of 100. So I'm going to put it over 100 and times it by the 54,000. Now when I do this on my calculator, I could type that in as a fraction, or I could just use the divide sign. So it'd be 33 divided by 100 and times by 54,000. So let's do that. So it's going to be 33 divided by 100 and times by 54,000, which gives us 17,820 Rand. So that's the total amounts they actually paid for the maintenance. Let's go look at question 2.5. Same question, so again the same pie charts. This time the Pythons Club receives its income from membership fees. The club had 100 members in 2010 and each paid 450 Rand membership fee for the year. All the members paid in full for 2010. What was the club's income from membership fees in 2010? Okay, so each person paid 450 Rand and there was 100 people. So my income is going to be 100 times 450 Rand. And hopefully some of you can do that in your head. I'm going to do it in mine. So I should get an answer of 45,000. If you want to check, you can. But let's go on to 2.6. Again, same pie chart, so let's see what they've got for us next. The Pythons Club increased its membership fees by 6% for 2011. Calculate the new membership fee for one member. So the new one, let's see what they're going to have to pay this year, and only one member. So that means that you don't want it for all 100 people that they actually asked in the previous question. So we had to pay 450 Rand last year, and it's going to be increased by 6%. So let's work out what 6% is. So I'm going to times that by 6%. And we're going to use our calculator again. So it's 450 times 6. And that gives me an answer of 27 Rand. So that means that they are actually increasing the membership fees per year by 27 Rand. So instead of paying 450 Rand, we're now going to pay 27 Rand more. So in order to get 27 Rand more than 450, we're going to have to add it on. So my new membership is going to be equal to my 450, which is last year's, plus the 27, which I can do in my head, and hopefully you can too, is 477 Rand. So for 2011, should I say, the membership fees will be 477 Rand. Question 2.7. The total income for the Mamba Club for 2010 was 42,000 Rand. Calculate the club's surplus or profits for 2010. Okay, so let's think about this. In order to work out our profits, they've given us the formula. It's income take away expenditure. So if they've told us our income, which is from our membership fees, is 42,000, where am I going to get my expenditure from? Yes, from the pie chart. So let's go back and see. Remember, we're dealing with the Mamba Club. And so we're going back to this one, and my total expenditure was 35,000 Rand. We can do this on our calculator. So it's going to be 42,000 minus 35,000, which gives me an answer of 7,000 Rand. So this is going to be my profits. I think the hardest part of this question is actually keeping track of which pie chart we're supposed to be looking at. So just make sure you read the question very, very carefully and you should be fine. We're now going on to question 3. The Lighthouse Foundation provides food parcels, uniforms and clothing to needy children in Limpopo. Each year, the Lighthouse Foundation presents a financial report to all its stakeholders. See the table below. And you'll see that this table has all the items that are income and all the expenses of all the things that have been paid, from donations and subsidies to administration costs and services rendered, etc. It then says, use the information in the table above to answer the following questions. So the key words here is use the information in the table. Don't make it up. Don't get it from anywhere else. You need to get the information from the table. Right, the first question says, write down the period of time covered by the financial report, which basically means what dates does it have on the top of the form. So let's have a look. And it says the 1st of March 2010 to the 28th of Feb 2011. The 1st of March 2010 to the 28th of Feb 2011. Right, let's go on to question 3.2. Again, based on the same table, name the Lighthouse Foundation's main source of income. What do they mean by main source? Now, if I had a main source of income, it would be the thing that came in the most. So therefore, it should be the biggest number that's in my income column. So we're going to look for our income. So it's going to be this side of the table. And we need to look for the biggest number over here. So I'd say that that's my biggest number, 308,160 Rand. And what is that for? It's for a subsidy from the local municipality. So let's write that down. Going on to question 3.3. Express the subsidy from the local municipality as a percentage of the total income and round off to the answer to 1 decimal place. Okay. So the thing we need to do first of all is to work out what the income from the local municipality is and what our total income is. So referring to our table, local municipality is 308,160. We're going to write this as a percentage, so therefore the best idea is to write it as a fraction first. So let's write that. It's 308,160. And it's over my total income. So let's have a look at what our total income is. It's this bottom number over here, which is 443,520 Rand. And to change it into a percentage, because that's what they're asking for, I need to times this by 100. So let's go to our calculator. The best way of doing a fraction is probably to use my fraction function. Remembering, if you don't have this function on your calculator, you could use the divide. So it would be the top divided by the bottom. So 308,160 divided by 443,520, and then I need to times that by 100 to make it into a percentage. And then I need to change it to a decimal, and we need to remember we need one decimal place. So we got 69,48. I need only one decimal place, so 48 would be converted to be comma 5. So it's going to be 69,5. And don't forget to put your percentage sign. Going on to 3.4. Calculate the average cost of one school uniform if 48 children receive school uniforms. Okay, so we're dealing with school uniforms. That would be an expense. So let's have a look and see, where do we see school uniforms? There we go, school uniforms. And it's 10,047 Rand was spent on school uniforms. So let's write that down. And they told us that 48 children got school uniforms. So therefore we need to share this between 48. And if we're using our calculators again, it's 10047 divided by 48. And that means it's going to be 209 Rand and 31 cents. Remember, that's money always has two decimal places, so even if they don't tell you, you need to always round to two decimal places. So it's going to be 209 and 31 cents. That's for one uniform. Let's move on to question 3.5. The overseas donations are from Japanese businessmen. Determine the amount in yen, so our answer needs to be in yen, that the foundation received from overseas donations if 1 Japanese yen is equal to 0,08 South African rands. Right, so let's have a look at our table, find out how much was actually donated, and we see that it is 57,120 Rand. I know from the information they've given us that 8 cents is equal to 1 yen. And I need to get 57,120 Rand. The best way of doing this is actually to get this to 1 Rand first. And the best way of doing that is to divide it by what it is. So I'm going to divide it by 0.08. What I do to the one side, I need to do to the other. And then I need to times it by whatever I want it to be. So I want it to be 57,120. So I'm going to have to do that to this side too. So I'm going to take my 1 yen, I'm going to divide it by 0.08, and then I'm going to times it by 57,120. Let's use our calculator. So it's going to be 1 divided by 0.08, and then I'm going to times it by 57,120. And I get 714,000. So that will be 714,000 yen. And that's our answer. Let's go on to question 4. Mrs. Pumazili is starting a transport business. She owns 1 taxi and she employs Peter as her taxi driver. The table below shows a list of the income and expenditures for her business for the month of February 2007. And there's all the information, her maintenance costs, all of these are expenses, and obviously then she actually has to have the fees collected, which is going to be her income. Question 4.1.1 is the total cost of maintenance. So we're going to look back in our table and we're going to find out what the maintenance costs were. And it's going to include all 3 of these things. So it's the fuel, it's the service and repairs, it's the cleaning. So we're going to have to add together all of those 3 things. So let's write that down. So it's 1,065 rand and 40 cents. I'm going to do it here. And it is 546 rand and 9 cents. And then the last one is 60 rand. And if we add all of those up together, we can do it manually, or again we could use our calculator. Let's maybe use our brains this time. So it's 12. 6. So our answer should be 1,671 rand and 49 cents. The next question, 4.1.2, is how many litres of fuel were used if fuel costs 7 rand a litre? The best way of doing that is to take the total amount spent on fuel and divide it by the cost of the fuel. So the number of litres is going to be the total cost divided by cost per litre. So our total cost of fuel we need to look up. Fuel is this amount, 1,065 rand and 40 cents. And divided by the cost per litre, which is 7 rand. Let's use our calculator. So it's 1,065 rand and 40 cents divided by our 7 litres is equal to 152 rand and 20 cents. Remember, if it doesn't have have 2 decimal places on your calculator, you need to add in the 2 decimal places afterwards. What percentage of the total expenses is allocated to salary? Okay, so we need to find out our salary. And we're going to put that over our total expenses. And in order to change it to a percentage, I need to times it by 100. We need to find these details out from the table. So we need to look at salary. The driver's salary is 3,500 Rand. And my total expenses is going to be this one here, which is 6,076 Rand and 94 cents. And times it by 100. I'm going to use the fraction button, but you can use divide. So it's 3500 over 6076.94, and I'm going to times that by 100. And that gives me 57,59. So to one decimal place, it's going to be 57,6. And don't forget your symbol. It's always a good idea, if you're not sure, to find out what the front of your exam paper says as far as how many decimal places you need to have. If they haven't told you, then you need to use the number that it says on the front of the page. So if it says 2 decimal places, you need to use 2 decimal places. If it says 1, you need to use 1. And if the question says specifically, you need to answer it like that. Let's go on to the next question. This is one of your favorites, time. Now this is where people make silly mistakes, so focus on this carefully. On Monday, the 18th of February, Peter worked from 6 in the morning, and the reason I know it's 6 in the morning is because it's 06 until 15:30, which is in the afternoon. What time is that? 15:30. Remember, in order to work out what time it is, you need to take away the 12. So it's going to be 15 minus 12 is 3. So it's actually 3:30 p.m. in normal numbers. And this would be 6 a.m. So how many hours did he work on that day? Now there's 2 ways we can do this. We can cheat and use our calculator, or we can do it manually. So let's do it both ways, so we actually have 2 options. Let's start off with our calculator. Now, the calculator has a special button over here that looks like it's lots of little commas. And that's actually my time button. So I can then choose 15, and then I push that button. And then, so it's 15 hours and 30 minutes. And I take away my 06 hours and 00 minutes. And I push equals, and I'll get an answer that looks like that. So that would be my hours, minutes, and seconds. So my answer would be 9 hours and 30 minutes. But some of you might be asking, what if I don't have one of those fancy calculators? How am I going to do it? Well, let's have a look. I'm going from 6 a.m. in the morning, and I'm going to 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon. What I need to do is I need to work out maybe what it is until 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So if I go from 6 o'clock in the morning to 12, 12 minus 6 is 6 hours. And then from 12 o'clock in the afternoon to 3:30, from lunchtime to 3:30 is 3 hours and 30 minutes. If I add these together, I should get 9 hours and 30 minutes. Not so bad really, is it? Let's go on to the next one. Peter's basic salary is 17.50 Rand per hour. Okay, so per hour. If Peter wants to earn 200 Rand per day, How many hours would he have to work? Give your answer to the nearest hour. So he has to round it off. So that means we need to round it. So what is the total he wants to earn? He wants to earn 200. And his day is going to be split into how many hours? So I need to work out that 17 Rand 50 is how much he's getting per hour. So I need to divide this by 17 Rand 50. So it's the total divided by the hourly rate will give us the number of days. Actually, hours. So we're going to do that on our calculator. 200 divided by 17.5. I can put the 0, but I don't have to. And I'll get an answer of 11,42 hours. And they said to the nearest hour. Now, if I want to earn 200 Rand, I don't want to do less than this amount. So therefore, I need to round it up. So I need to make sure that I've rounded it to the next whole number. So in order to make more than 200 Rand, I need to round up. So I'm going to round my 11 hours to 12 hours. Hopefully all of you understand that. Mrs. Pumazeli asks Peter to go on a trip of 120 kilometers. Peter drives a taxi at an average speed of 90 kilometers per hour. How long will the trip take? Write your answer correct to one decimal place and given this formula. So we're going total journey of 120 kilometers. This is my distance. And 90 kilometers per hour is my speed. And I'm looking for how long. How long means time. So which of these formulas am I going to choose? I'm going to choose this one because I'm looking for time. So I need to have my distance over speed. My distance was 120 kilometers. And my speed was 90 kilometers per hour. On my calculator, 120 divided by 90 is equal to 4/3, which is 1.333. And they've told me to round it to one decimal place. So it should really be 1,3 hours. Now, for me, that's not really a feasible answer. They've asked me for one decimal place, and that would probably be accepted. But actually, if I wanted to write it in hours and minutes, I could then convert this to be hours and minutes. So let's just do that as a little bit of a side extension. So 1,333 recurring hours means it's actually 1 hour and 33,333 hours. And this could be changed to be minutes. 0,333 is actually 1/3 as a fraction. So 1/3 of an hour in minutes, 1/3 of 60 is equal to 20 minutes. So if I had to convert this, I could say instead of 1,3 hours, it would probably be more sensible to say 1 hour and 20 minutes. But also, it's always a good idea to check what the actual question asked for. It's set to one decimal place. So that would probably be the answer that they are actually asking for. But that's actually how long it is in real life. So let's go on to the next question. Question 5. One of the key functions of the Department of Social Development is to provide social assistance for people in need. The following table shows both the number and the percentage of beneficiaries allocated to each type of grant during 2005 and 2007. So you can see the beneficiary and the percentage. Beneficiary and percentage for each year. So this is 2005 and this is 2007. And we're comparing those two answers. So 5.1's question is, what percentage of the grants allocated during 2007 were for old age pensioners? So we're looking for 2007 and old age pensioners. So this is the graph, the table we're going to be looking at, old age pensioners, and we're looking for percentage. So it's going to be this amount here. So it's going to be 18.2%. On to 5.2. Calculate the difference between the number of beneficiaries receiving child support grants during 2005 and 2007. Difference, remember, always means you need to take the two answers away. So I need the difference, so I need to find out what is the two numbers for child support. 2005 and 2007. So I'm going to minus these two numbers, so it's going to be 7,908,138 minus 5,662,911. On our calculator, 7,908,138 minus 5662911, and so it's going to be 2,245,227. Check. And that's our answer. Going on to the next one. Calculate the following missing values from the table. We're looking for A and we're looking for B. A is going to be a percentage and B is going to be a number like these up here. Right, in order to find out what A is, you can see that this, and this all have to add up to 100. So in order to find out what A is, we're going to just say 100 minus the three values that we've been given. So 22,3 and the 60,2 and the 3,6. So it's 100 minus brackets 22.3 plus 60.2 plus 3.6. Close our brackets and push equals. And our answer should be 13.9. And remember, because it's a percentage, we need to put a percentage sign in here. Let's go on to B. Now B, you can see, is actually the total. So we have to add up all these huge numbers. So this is really a question to make sure we don't make any silly mistakes. Okay, so let's write down all these long numbers. Please be careful. This is an opportunity to make careless mistakes. So let's start. 2,190,686, 7,908,138, 1,420,335, and 5,175,5. 580. And we're going to add all of those up. I've done it on our calculator already for us. So the answer is going to be 12,036,739. So let's write that down. And this is the number of beneficiaries. I was just checking that we had the right units. So that's fine. Let's go on to question 5.4. The percentage of the total number of beneficiaries for each type of grant during 2005 is represented as a bar graph on the next page. Complete the graph by adding the bars to represent the percentage of allocations for the different types of grants during 2007. So basically they've given us a bar chart with 2005, and there's the key, 2005. We're going to do 2007, so I'm going to color mine in green because all of my 2007 are going to be green. And we're going to then have to compare from 2005 to 2007, and we're looking at percentages. So we're going to look back at our table and we're going to use the percentages that they've given us. So we're looking at, they've drawn these ones, so that's already done. We're going to be drawing these ones here. So the first one is old age pensioners at 18.2. So looking at our graph, there's 15. We need to go up to 18, 16, 17, 18, and slightly over. Not the most accurate with this pen, but you can get the idea, and obviously shade it in. Child support, 65.7%. So let's go. There's 60, so it's going to be a little bit higher. So I'm going to just draw up a bit. 65.7, so it's nearly 66, so it's just under that line, probably a little bit less. And then you need to obviously use a ruler and shade it in. Please be careful when you're reading these to make sure that your graph is as accurate as possible. The next one is 11.8, so it's close to 12. There's 10, 11, 12, so it's 11.8. It's probably just under 12. Try and make your bars the same size. Make sure you use a ruler so that you can make sure that they actually look accurate and neat. And then the last one is 4.3. And so it's going to be slightly more than this one. There we go. And then this type of graph is a dual bar graph, and you can see that it's very easy now to compare the 2 years one next to each other. So you can see that old age people got less, disability people got less, but child support and other got a lot more this year. Let's go on to question number 6. The Hospitality Studies Department of Sesfikile High School bakes brown bread in order to raise funds for the shortfall incurred in their day-to-day expenses. The school charges the Hospitality Studies Department a fixed weekly cost of 400 Rand for water and electricity. Now please note that it's fixed weekly cost, so it doesn't change. It's always this 400 Rand. The cost of producing 1 loaf of brown bread, including labor and ingredients, is 3.50 Rand. The brown bread is sold at 6 Rand a loaf. Right, let's see what they're going to ask us next. If 1 loaf of brown bread requires 450 grams of flour, Determine the maximum number of loaves of bread that can be baked from 12,5 kilograms of flour. Right, the first thing I noticed with this question is that they both have different units of measurement. This is in grams and this is in kilograms. And if we're going to actually use them together, we need to actually make sure that they are the same units. So what I'm actually trying to find out is how many 450 grams there are in 12,5 kilograms of flour. So the best thing I need to do is change the 12,5 kilograms. I'm going to change it into grams. And in order to convert from kilograms to grams, I need to times by 1,000 because there are 1,000 grams in a kilogram. So let's do that. So if I times 12,5 times 1,000, I should get 12500 grams. So this is my total amount of flour. And I want to find out how many loaves of bread I can make from that. And I know that each loaf of bread has 450 grams of flour. So I'm going to divide that by 450. And I should then get the total number of loaves, or the maximum number of loaves, because obviously I don't have to use all the flour at once. That's 27,777 loaves. Now, that's not really a sensible answer because we can't have whole loaf of 27,777. So we need to decide, are we going to round this up or are we going to round it down? Now, you need to round it down. And the reason being, let's just write that, is that you're going to need a little bit more flour in order to make 28 loaves. So we haven't got enough to make a whole 28 loaves. So we actually only have enough flour to make 27 loaves. So that's the maximum whole loaves that we can actually make. Let's go on to the next question. 6.2. The table below shows the weekly cost of making the bread. So the table has the number of loaves, the total income in rands. And you'll see that even if I don't have any loaves of bread, that I still need to pay 400 Rand. And that's because that is the fixed weekly cost. So it doesn't matter if I don't produce any bread, I still have to pay that 400 Rand. The formula to calculate the total cost per week is the following formula. The total cost per week is equal to the fixed weekly cost, which we just reminded ourselves is 400 Rand. The number of loaves of bread, now we're looking for A, so the number of loaves of bread is 120. And then the cost per loaf. We need to go back to our original information to find out the cost of producing one loaf of bread is 3.50 Rand. So we're going to use 3.50 Rand here. Let's write that in a sensible formula that we can actually use as a sum. So the total cost per week and we're looking for A, so we're looking for the total cost is going to be 400 plus the number of loaves that we make at A, which is 120, times the 3.50 Rand. So let's do that on our calculator. 400 plus brackets 120 times 3.50 Rand. And our answer is going to be 820 Rand. And I'm going to fill it in here so I remember. The next thing I'm looking for is B. And this one is the number of loaves. So we're actually looking for this amount here, and we have the total cost. So I'm going to rewrite that formula out. Total cost. $400 plus, and this time it's going to be N that I'm looking for, and it's times 3 Rand 50, and I know what the total cost per week is. It's 1,240. So this actually is going to be 1,240. So let's write that out as a reasonable equation. 1,240 is equal to 400 plus 3 Rand 50 times N is actually could be written as 3 Rand 50 N. I'm going to move that to the other side, remembering to change my sign. So it's going to be 1,240 minus 400 is equal to 3 Rand 50 N. If I said 1,240 minus 400, I get 840, which is equal to 3,50 N. I want N by itself, so I have to divide it by 3,50. So we're going to take our answer and divide it by 3.50. And I get 240. So N is equal to 240. What does N actually stand for? N is the number of loaves. And this would be B on our graph. So we could write it in there, 240. Right, let's go on.
Okay, do that to camera for me, please. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay.
Action.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one. 6.3. The table.
Sorry,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
same figure to camera.
Okay.
And action.
Right, let's go on to the next one. The next one is 6.3, and the table below shows the weekly income from selling the bread. So the other one was the expenses, or how much it costs to actually make the bread, and now we're talking about the income, how much money we make when we actually sell the bread. Right, now we have to find out the values of C and D. Very similar to the last questions, except you'll notice that this is related to how much we sold the bread for. And if we look back here, we sold it for 6 Rand per loaf. So if I sold no bread, I'd earn no money. And if I sold 120 loaves, which is going to give me C, it's going to be 120 times my 6 Rand. So 120 times 6 gives me 720. So if I sold 120 loaves of bread, I will make 720 Rand. So now to go on to find out the loaves, the number of loaves for D. So we're going to find out what this D value is. I know that the total income for this one is that 960 Rand. I want to find out how many loaves, so I'm just going to call the number of loaves N, And I know that the cost of the loaves is 6 Rand. So that's basically my equation. I want to find out what this value is, and this value is actually what our D value is, which is what we're looking for. So 6N is equal to 960. I'm going to divide that by 6, that by 6. 960 divided by 6 is 160. So N is equal to 160. So that means that value of D is 160 loaves. So we can write that in here. Now we're going on to 6.4, which actually involves drawing the graphs of these two tables. So it says, use the values from the tables below to draw two straight line graphs, the keyword straight line, on the same grid, showing the total cost per week of making the bread and the income per week of selling the bread. Clearly label the graphs, costs and income. So first of all, we're going to identify which is our costs and which is our income. Very clear. There's cost, there's income. So we're going to now plot these points. So the first one, let's do our costs first, is 0,400, 40 and 540. I think that's going to be roughly about there. It's not the most accurate graph because we actually haven't got all the grid lines in. Let's go for a bigger number. Let's go for the 300 and 1,450. So 300 and 1,400. It's going to be approximately there. I'm going to use a straight line to help me. So it's going from here to there. And remember to label it like they told you to, and this should be cost. Obviously, ideally, you need to plot in all the different missing points in between. And now let's go on to the second one. It starts at 0, 0, so that's our point in the corner here. And it goes all the way to 300 and 1,800. So that's the other point. I can get away with cheating slightly because I know these are straight line graphs. So if I've got 2 points, they should actually join together. And we need to label that our income. You can see at this point over here, a bit of an extra as well, this is your break-even point. That's when they start making a profit. So as this line increases, this is the difference over here that would actually make the profit. Going on to question number 7. Mikala is busy building a new house, and the length of the house is 11 meters, and the width of the house is 6,10 meters. The building is a double story, and the details below are found in his notebook. Okay. And this basically is a list of all the things that he needs to get done in his house and how much it's going to cost just for the labor. So the foundations, the building of the walls, plastering of walls, preparing or throwing the concrete, etc. So you can read through that whole list, and let's see what we're looking for in our question. Express the cost of the most expensive stage of the work as a percentage of the total labor cost. Okay, so we need to look for the most expensive stage. Okay, we need to find the biggest number here. And looking at this, it looks like it's going to be that 18,000. So the most expensive stage is going to be throwing the concrete on the top floor. The total cost of all of the labor, have they given this information to us? No, so we're going to have to add up all of these numbers, and lucky for you, I've already done it for you. So it's 83,100. Okay, and we want to find out the cost, the most expensive stage as a percentage of the total labor. So we need to find out the most expensive stage. We'd worked out was 18,000. So we need to write it as a fraction. So it's going to be 18,000 over the 83,100. And to change to a fraction, to a percentage should I say, is times by 100. So let's do that on our calculator. 18,000 divided by 83,100 and times that by 100, which gives us an answer of 21,66. And remember, that's a percentage. That's all we need to answer, so we can move on to the next one. 7.2, the length of the top floor is 11 meters. The width, including the balcony, is 7,6 meters, and the thickness is 17 centimeters. Calculate the volume of the concrete used on the top floor. The volume of a rectangular prism is the length times the width times the height. So we need to actually imagine what does that look like. So we've basically got a rectangular prism, and it's got a height as well. Just a rough sketch. They told us the length is 11 meters, so I'm going to just label it there. The width is 7,60, and they've told us the height of this is 17 centimeters. Now the problem with that is that 17 centimeters is not the same unit of measurement. So we need to convert the centimeters to meters. How do we change centimeters to meters? We need to divide by 100 because there's 100 centimeters in a meter. So I'm going to divide this by 100. So it's going to end up being 0,17 meters. And that's my height. So this is my length. And this is my width. So now I've got all the bits that I need to do the volume. So my volume is going to be length times width times height. And that's going to be 11 times 7,6 times 0,17. Doing that on my calculator, it's 11 times 7.60 times 0.17, which gives me an answer of 14,212. and it's in meters and it's volume, so it should be meters cubed. Please make sure you write the right units of measurement. Let's check if there was any specifications about decimal places. No, it's fine. Right, so let's go on and do the next question. A cubic meter of concrete cost 850 rand. How much did he pay for the concrete on the top floor? Right, now we've just worked out how much concrete he actually needed. He needed 14,212 meters cubed of concrete. And they've told us a cubic meter, which is 1 meter cubed, is equal to 850 rand. So in order to find out how much this is going to cost, I need to times this by 850 rand. And I can take my answer that I had on my calculator and times it by 850, which gives me an answer of 12,080 rand and 20 cents. Right, that looks good. Let's go on. This is question number 8. Mrs. Maharaj makes duvet sets which she sells at a local street market at 150 rand per set. That's including VAT. If she makes 50 or less, the duvet sets per month, her production costs are 100 rand per set. If she makes more than 50 duvet sets per month, her production costs are reduced by 15% per set. Mrs. Maharaj has to pay 8,400 rand annually, note annually, that means per year, for the rental of her stall, and she has weekly transport costs of 75 rand. (8.1.1) says, show that her fixed cost for the month of February is 1,000 rand. Now let's have a look back. Her transport costs her 75 rand per month. Her rent for her stall is going to obviously be 1/12 of this, so we need to say 8,400 divided by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So let's see where that gets us. So her rent is equal to 8,400 divided by 12. Which means it's 700 rand per month. Weekly transport means that every single week they're paying 75 rand, and there's generally 4 weeks in a month. So that's going to be my 75 rand times the 4 weeks, which 75 times 4 should give me 300 per month. And if we add these two up together, that should give me 1,000. And those are my fixed costs. Fixed costs, remember, are costs that don't change. So every single month she will be paying 1,000 rand in her fixed costs. Okay, let's go on to question 8.1.2. How does her fixed cost for February, which is what we've just found out, compare to her average monthly fixed costs? Show all calculations. So to find the monthly average, we're going to actually have to find the yearly average, yearly total, and then divide it by 12. So to find the monthly average, is going to be the total of the year and then divided by 12, we know that the rent for the year is equal to 8,400 Rand. And we know that the transport is equal to 75 Rand per week. And as there are 52 weeks in a year, I would need to times that by 52 to get the total for the year. So let's do that on our calculator. 75 times 52, that's 3,900 Rand. So the total fixed costs for the year is going to be that plus that. So it's going to be the 8,400 plus the 3,900. So that's 12,300 for the whole year. But I wanted the average for each month. So I'm going to take that total of 12,300 and I'm going to divide it by 12. Lucky I've still got it on my calculator. Divide it by 12, which is 1,025 Rand. Have I answered the question? Let's go back and look at what the question was. How does her fixed cost in February compare to the average monthly fixed costs? Show all calculations. So we've shown all our calculations, but we haven't compared. That was the key word that we haven't done yet. So we need to compare. February, if you remember, was 1,000 Rand per month in fixed costs. They've said that the average is 1,025. So therefore, February's fixed costs is 25 Rand cheaper than the average. Please make sure you go back and read the question again and make sure you've got the whole answer. Otherwise, you might lose a silly mark just because you didn't finish it off. Are we ready to go on to the next one? Let's go. Question 8.2. Calculate the production cost per duvet set if 90 sets were made per month. So we've made 90 sets. Let's go look at the rules for this. 50 or less cost 100 Rand. If she made 50, more than 50, then it was 15% less. Reduced means less than 15% by 15%. So we need to find out what 15% of 100 is, because that was the total price, and 15% of 100, 15% times 100 is equal to 15 Rand. And we're now taking that off because it's 15% less. So I'm going to say my 100 Rand minus the 15 Rand is equal to 85 Rand per duvet set. And obviously that's only the ones that are over 50. So calculate the production cost per duvet set if 90 sets were made per month. So if I was making 90, my production costs would be 85 Rand, which is the answer. Question 8.3. The table below shows Mrs. Maharaj's production costs for different quantities of duvet sets made in February. You can see that if she had 0, it would still cost 1,000, which is basically her fixed cost, like we worked out earlier. Then 30 costs 4,000, etc., etc. If it was 70, to work out C, which is what they're asking us to do here, we need to use this formula, and we need to use 70 duvet sets. Remember, if it's over 50, then we are charging 85 Rand per set. Okay, so total cost, in this case it's C, is equal to the fixed monthly cost, which is 1,000 Rand, plus the number of duvet sets in this scenario is 70. And remember, if I'm more than 50, then I'm going to be charging 85 Rand per duvet set. So this is going to be 1,000 plus 70 times 85, which is 5,950, which means my total cost is going to be 6,950. Right, the next one is we need to find out how many duvet sets if I made 7,800 Rand. Okay, so my total cost is 7,800 Rand. And my fixed cost is still going to be 1,000 plus, and I don't know how many I've got, and I'm still going to times it by 85 Rand. Why did I choose 85 instead of 100? Because this number is bigger than the 50. So therefore, this means that there is more than 50 duvets being sold. So it will be the lower rate of 85 Rand. Okay, so let's solve this equation. So that's going to be 6,800 is equal to 85N, divide by 85. So 6,800 divided by 85 is equal to 80. Which means that 80 duvet sets were sold in order to make 7,800 Rand. Anyway, that brings the end to our financial maths revision session. Hopefully you followed with us with the questions and you've made a bit more sense of all of these things, and hopefully it will help you with your revision in the future.